social cleavage into two pseudo-races. A. Olgior, midmen, light-skinned and dark-haired. B. Ongyar, lords, very tall, dark-skinned, yellow-haired. That's her, said Rocannon, looking up from the abridged handy pocket guide to intelligent life forms at the very tall, dark-skinned, yellow-haired woman who stood halfway down the long museum hall. She stood still and erect, crowned with bright hair, gazing at something in a display case. Around her fidgeted four uneasy and unattractive dwarves. I didn't know Fomalhaut II had all those people besides the Trogs, said Ketho, the curator. I didn't either. There are even some unconfirmed species listed here that they never contacted. Sounds like time for a more thorough survey mission to the place. Well, now at least we know what she is. I wish there were some way of knowing who she is. She was of an ancient family, a descendant of the first kings of the Ongyar, and for all her poverty, her hair shone with the pure, steadfast gold of her inheritance. The little people, the Fiia, bowed when she passed them, even when she was a barefoot child running in the fields, the light and fiery comet of her hair brightening the troubled winds of Kirian. She was still very young when Durhal of Holland saw her, courted her, and carried her away from the ruined towers and windy halls of her childhood to his own high home. In Holland on the mountainside there was no comfort either, though splendor endured. The windows were unglassed, the stone floors bare. In cold year one might wake to see the night snow in long, low drifts beneath each window. Durhal's bride stood with narrow, bare feet on the snowy floor, braiding up the fire of her hair and laughing at her young husband in the silver mirror that hung in their room. That mirror, and his mother's bridal gown sewn with 1,000 tiny crystals, were all his wealth. Some of his lesser kinfolk of Holland still possessed wardrobes of brocaded clothing, furniture of gilded wood, silver harness for their steeds, armor and silver-mounted swords, jewels and jewelry. And on these last, Durhal's bride looked enviously, glancing back at a gemmed coronet or a golden brooch even when the wearer of the ornament stood aside to let her pass, deferent to her birth and marriage rank. Forth from the high seat of Hallan revel sat Durhal and his bride Semli, so close to Hallan Lord that the old man often poured wine for Semli with his own hand, and spoke of hunting with his nephew and heir Durhal, looking on the young pair with a grim, unhopeful love. Hope came hard to the Ongyar of Hallan and all the western lands, since the Star Lords had appeared with their houses that leaped about on pillars of fire, and their awful weapons that could level hills. They had interfered with all the old ways and wars, and though the sums were small, there was terrible shame to the Ongyar in having to pay a tax to them, a tribute for the Star Lord's war that was to be fought with some strange enemy, somewhere in the hollow places between the stars at the end of years. It will be your war too, they said. But for a generation now the Ongyar had sat in idle shame in their revel halls, watching their double swords rust, their sons grow up without ever striking a blow in battle, their daughters marry poor men, even mid-men, having no dowry of heroic loot to bring a noble husband. Hallan Lord's face was bleak when he watched the fair-haired couple and heard their laughter as they drank bitter wine and joked together in the cold, ruinous, resplendent fortress of their race. Semli's own face hardened when she looked down the hall and saw, in seats far below hers, even down among the half-breeds and the midmen, against white skins and black hair, the gleam and flash of precious stones. She herself had brought nothing in dowry to her husband, not even a silver hairpin. The dress of 1,000 crystals she had put away in a chest for the wedding day of her daughter, if daughter it was to be. It was, and they called her Haldre, and when the fuzz on her little brown skull grew longer it shone with steadfast gold, the inheritance of the lordly generations, the only gold she would ever possess. Semli did not speak to her husband of her discontent. For all his gentleness to her, Durhal in his hard, lordly pride had only